This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
All the way from the A, you listen to my favorite lesbian on BRQ.
Hey, stay locked in with your favorite lesbian on Black Radical Queer. Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Jhavia Nicole, aka your favorite lesbian, and you're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, our stories on our own terms. Before diving into this episode, I want to take a moment to tell y'all about Black Radical Queer on Patreon. Patreon is a great way to support the podcast because those contributions help to offset the cost of making this thing happen. So production costs, editing costs, hosting fees, all of the funds from the Patreon go towards supporting that and keeping this podcast moving right on along. Also, there's perks to becoming a patron because you get early access to the episodes and you also get a discount on all BRQ merch. So it's a great way to support. I appreciate my current patrons. And if you want to become a patron, you can do so by going to patreon.com. So Patreon is patreon.com/BlackRadQueer, BLK RAD QWR. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get into this episode. Hey y'all, this is Jhavia Nicole. Welcome to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. This is the first episode of season 4. After having a much needed hiatus, I wanted to come back and do an episode at this time because there's just a lot going on, and I just felt like it would be timely. And it was overdue. And I started to get messages from y'all asking when I was going to do another episode. They're like, when is the next season starting? So, I guess folks have caught up by now because initially nobody was concerned. Well, I won't say it like that, but based on the stats, I guess folks are all caught up and now they're like, all right, so what's up with these episodes? So that's what we're here for. So I'm live on Instagram right now. I also have the video and then we'll have the audio. So for those who are listening to the regular, episode, then you'll be hearing this on Juneteenth, which is June 19th. It's not my usual day, but I just wanted to release the episode on that day because it'll be the 2-year anniversary of the podcast and it's Juneteenth. So I felt like it would be appropriate. But for those who are on the BRQ Instagram, they're able to see it live. So they'll be ahead of the game. And for those who are patrons, they'll be able to have access to the video playback at any time. They'll get access to the link. It won't be listed, so it'll only go directly to those folks who are patrons, and they'll be able to go back and listen. So they'll be ahead of everybody else by about a week. Yeah, and then everybody else will get it when it comes out on Juneteenth. So if you want to be able to have early access to the episodes, patrons will always have early access. I won't go live every time. I'm just doing this for now. But moving forward for like the rest of the episodes, the patrons, they'll be the ones who will be able to see it live. They'll be the only ones who have access to it. And then everybody else will just get it on the normal days it drops. It's still going to be Wednesdays. So yeah. So I have my wife, Courtney, here with me. For folks who have been listening for a while, y'all already know who she is. But I do have new listeners because I've had some promotion kind of happen recently, which I'm grateful for. So I've noticed, there have been more followers on the Instagram. There have been people joining the Facebook discussion group and people contacting me. So go ahead and introduce yourself beyond just saying, my name is Courtney.
In Espanol,
so
because I know you have a wide audience.
So that folks will know who you are, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Once again, my name is Courtney, aka Coco, Cocaine Coco, the People's Champ. Me llamo Courtney.
Just gonna keep saying that.
I'm learning Spanish right now, so yeah, thank you. I'm Jhavia's wife. We've been married now for 2 years. She's blessed in that way. We've been together for 8.5 years at this point.
She's blessed in that way. That she's gotten to be with me for this long.
We've been together 8.5 years at this point. What else about me? I'm cool, calm, and collected. little ratchet.
That's a throwback phrase.
Yeah.
That's like a throwback football phase. Like dating phrase, like dating app.
My birthday is June 17th.
Cool,
so anyways, my birthday is June 17th. So if you want to bless her by blessing me, that works.
It doesn't. That doesn't work. Anyway.
I'll be 31. So I'm officially extra grown. I'll be. What else about me? I don't know. I hate talking about myself. You know this.
Okay.
Well, I went to college and I have 2 dogs.
That's enough.
Damn. It was shutting me down.
You just said, "Oh, I don't want to talk about myself." I'm like, "All right, then. You don't have to keep talking about yourself."
All right.
You shut me down. All right. So, this is, I don't know, day 7,062 or something of quarantine. So the last time we did episode, okay, so the last episode that I put out normally, like via Lipsyn, and it went out to all the platforms, was in March. And then I did basically a live season finale on my birthday, which was April 2nd. So those who were on that live, I went live on Facebook. Then they got to kind of, just hang out with us. And we were talking for a little minute about quarantine stuff at that point. But at that point, it had been less than a month that, since we had transitioned into quarantine or whatever. At this point, it's June. And so we're, 3 months? Yeah, 3 months into this thing. So a lot has taken place. Right now, coronavirus is kind of like less at the forefront, but it's still very real, and we're still very much in the house.
Yes.
Not the same for everybody. And I understand some folks' reasons, for being out and about and all that kind of stuff. And some places are just reopening. So it just kind of is what it is. But
not some places, the whole country just reopened. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
And then, really, they just gave up. That's what it just kind of feels like. They just gave up. So.
And your boy Trump was like, if we get a second wave, we ain't shutting nothing down.
Well, we never got through the first wave.
Honestly, we're still in the first wave. But he's just like, so we ain't shutting nothing down. I'm like, typical. What's going on the live?
Nothing.
Oh. So yeah, there's that. So anyway, we are coming back to basically kind of do another quarantine check-in. For those who've been listening for a while, I like to do my kind of social media or news, like roundup type things where we just talk about shit that's going on. Sometimes I'll tell y'all about interactions I've had on social media, which hasn't been interesting, or just stuff going on in the news or whatever. So there's a lot going on. So since I have Courtney here with me, what's, current or pressing that you're interested in talking about? I have like my own little list and outline and stuff, but I also want to, give room to Courtney to like bring up, and some stuff I'm sure is going to be overlap. So, so what you want to talk about first?
I don't know. The world's been a little crazy. And it seems like it's just getting progressively worse as the year goes on. So, I think people have stopped asking, can it get any worse at this point? And we're just like, fuck, what's next? So right now I'm kind of reconciling with, I guess what's going on, like social justice wise, and my role in it. I'm trying to figure that out because I'm in such a different place now than I was a few years ago. So I think that's an interesting thing, is kind of finding yourself in activism, or watching yourself grow in activism.
So,
or not grow, I guess. I don't know. It's just.
Have you grown?
I don't know. I don't feel like it.
So what does that mean to you? You saying like watching yourself grow in activism or whatever. What does that mean for you?
It's just personally? I think was it Kinfolk Collective said something about how these movements are always led by younger people, because older people, like capitalism essentially does its job, right? So now, once you're older, you have more of a career, you have a house, etc. You have kids, and so capitalism kind of keeps you in check. Like, I'm less
like
likely.
You have more to lose.
I'm less likely to risk things now than I was when I was broke, and I ain't have shit to lose, so I wouldn't have put myself out there.
Right.
And so I'm kind of trying to reconcile that. Now, I will say, I have money. I ain't got money. I can put money towards the cause now, and before I can only put my body towards it. Okay. I'm a broke ass nigga. According to that reaction, I don't know what that was.
No, I'm just saying, like, okay, talk your shit. Like,
oh, okay. I thought you were saying, oh, this bitch ain't got no money.
Wow. First of all, that would be fucked up because
I know.
I'm your wife.
Put my business in the street like that.
Second of all, you make more than me, so like, and I ain't like just a broke bitch. Like, I'm a comfortable bitch. You know what I'm saying? I ain't balling. She is like more on that, getting to that balling level. Like, I'm just comfortable. You know what I'm saying? I'm just glad to not be a check to check bitch no more. Okay, so
deep. But yeah, so I can put money towards the cause now versus putting my body on the line. And I wasn't gonna put my body on the line, no way, because I ain't forget about COVID. I don't know where everybody else was like, fuck it. And it's cool because I understand that level of anger.
Right. And to feel like, okay, even in the midst of a pandemic, like this threat to my life is more pressing than a global pandemic, you know, which it just speaks volumes to how serious and how like this shit is crazy and folks and how tired people are. And also because a lot of folks have been in the house and stuff. So now it's like, I got time, I got energy, like to be out in these streets. Because if it wasn't for COVID, I'd definitely be out in the streets. Because that's what we do. Like we'd be in these streets. Because of COVID, we're like, let's chill. But I have definitely been, like Courtney said, like putting money behind the cause, sharing stuff and all kind of stuff. But like I've donated so much stuff. And I always be, and that's something, I mean, and we don't even necessarily like talk about it a lot, but we both will donate to stuff just kind of on our own. We don't have like some huge powwow about it or anything like that. But so I've consistently like donated to things, even when I was check to check. It's just, it is what it is. But it's been more like, I was looking at my bank statement. I'm like, damn, GoFundMe and all this other stuff, just seeing all the little transactions. I'm like, okay, you know, but I mean, I'm glad that I have the means to do it. Because, you know, I can't, like in my heart, I would absolutely want to be on these streets. Like, let's do it, you know, but I can't ignore the pandemic. And then too, the thing is, a lot of folks who are out there already been out. So for them, it's not much of a change because those folks who are essential, been in these streets anyway. So they're like, shit, I've been working. You know, life hasn't changed for them. So it's nothing, you know what I'm saying, to go beyond the streets when you still got to leave your house every day anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. So there's that. And then I've been trying to reconcile with, it's like the timing of this. I was telling Daniela, the timing of.
Who is Daniela? Everybody don't know who Daniela is.
Daniela is my therapist.
Okay. Continue.
She's an amazing woman. The timing of when I got this job, I was basically on my way to law school, and I decided not to go to law school to do this job, and I convinced myself that because I was still able to help people in this role, but I would get paid more to do it. And then there's just some shit going down in my job right now. I'm like really unhappy there, and I was just telling her like the fucking timing of, you know, being needed in a social justice capacity right now and not being happy at my job when I could have been heading into my third year of law school. Like just the timing of all this shit happening and just kind of like really fucking with my mind, you know? So yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks to say the least, just internally for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that especially when you're someone who's used to being out and kind of like really putting your body out there, you know, to not do it. Like for me, I definitely, not a disconnect, but there's like this weird kind of thing that I'm feeling. I feel like I'm almost like in limbo. I feel some guilt because that's just like, so what I'm accustomed to. I'm very much accustomed to being like, all right, let's go. Like, you know, that's what we do. And even in our relationship, I mean, that's what we do. And more so like for me, like with this partner than anybody else, where it's like, hey, we about it, like, let's, you know, go. So to not do that and to be to an extent on the outside looking in terms of that, like on the ground, like the grassroots level thing, is very strange to me. I'm very much not accustomed to it. I'm also not accustomed to being in a position where I'm comfortable, like, kind of like stable finances, stable living conditions. So that I feel like brings me even more guilt because I'm like, damn, we sitting up in this house that we bought and, we're fixing it up and getting the stuff to make our house, a home, and folks are out in these streets and we're watching it from a screen, and we're contributing to the cause and everything. But it's like, and I understand that like everybody has a role to play, and everybody's role is not necessarily to be on the front lines, on the ground, or whatever. I 110% understand that. And I'm someone who's like, in my field, I have to often tell folks like, to give themselves grace for like what they can and can't do. And like, hey, you don't have to play that role, whatever. I get all that shit. However, that still doesn't make me feel less guilty. It doesn't make me feel less weird because I'm not used to being at that vantage point where I'm like this, looking at it as opposed to me being there. Like it's very, it's just very disconcerting for me. So I don't really know what to do with it. I just been trying to like do my part, contribute, support. Like we were already supporting Black businesses and shit like that. Like that's stuff that we already do in our everyday life. Yeah. But now since there's been such a push and all these lists are coming out, like I'm learning about businesses I didn't know about. And because of that, I've been able to support like even more Black owned businesses because I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this exists. Like the amount of money that I have spent is pretty ridiculous. But at the same time, for me, I'm like, well, this is money I would have been spending anyway, honestly, getting to and from work. Like, it's not like, it hasn't changed in terms of like my budget or me looking at my account and seeing what I have in there. It's like, this money would have just been going to rideshare for me commuting to and from work. So I'd much rather, give it to these businesses and give it to these causes. And so that's been great, but it's so odd. It feels like two different realities or whatever. Like I'm seeing a different reality or whatever, because I'm like, we in the house and we've been in the house. So it's very odd. It's very odd.
Yeah, it's strange, to say the least. And it's odd because when we were out there protesting, we would see older people. So I kind of feel like we're just, when COVID's over, because this shit's not going to end, like they're going to keep killing us. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not going to end. I think, when they get a vaccine, whatever the fuck they figure out, we'll have to be out there. Or when Trump refuses to leave the White House, whatever comes next, yeah. There's going to be a time where we're not going to be able to stay. Right. And, we'll have to figure it out.
Which, just because of who we are, we already know that. Like, so basically it's kind of like, we're kind of just waiting. It's going to get to a point where it's like, okay, we just not going to be able to just, chill or whatever. So, and not even like that, but it's just, shit is going to keep snowballing or whatever. And that's just kind of how these things work. It just is what it is. So, so that's been very odd. And that has, kind of brought up some feelings for me that I couldn't anticipate because I've never been in this position. I've never been in a position of, not being on the front line. So it's very interesting. But I mean, money does talk too, and not to understate, the significance of us contributing our funds. And because it's something that's important to us, and it just being like, there's no question. I'm not like hesitating, like, should I, support, should I? Bruh, them transactions, we got packages coming in. We got like, it has not been, there's been no hesitation. Like we've been contributing the coin. Okay. And in the past, that's not something I was really able to do like that. So I understand, that everybody has like their role to play and all that. And so some of the feelings around it, I just have to reconcile. It's just new, it's just a new way to feel. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was, because it's relevant to protests and stuff like that. A lot of people have been calling for defunding the police, or like abolishing the police. And from me, like just seeing people's posts and seeing conversations people are having, there seems to be a lot of confusion about what that actually means. So for one, a lot of people think that these things are synonymous. Like, they're not. They are different things. To defund the police versus abolishing. So there is some overlap, but they're not the same thing. So for defunding the police, which a lot of folks say defund the police, people are thinking that means abolish, like get rid of them, and it doesn't. It just means reallocating funds. That's like the simple version. Reallocating funds. Police departments have huge budgets. Like, it's ridiculous. And part of those budgets go to like things that they shouldn't have. Like, they have military grade weaponry and shit walking the streets with civilians, with regular ass people. Like, why do y'all have this? Like, they out in like riot gear is basically military shit, like military grade stuff, like uniforms and stuff like that. Like, it's ridiculous. Why y'all got all this stuff? Like, they have, all tear gas and rubber bullets. I think people think like they're made of rubber. It literally is a bullet that has rubber around it. It's not that it's not lethal, it's less lethal. So it can still damn kill you. And they're supposed to like basically aim it downward, and it like bounces off of something to, make contact to decrease the impact. But no, they aim it straight at people, and people are posting pictures and all kinds of stuff of the injuries and stuff that they have for that. Those are real ass bullets, y'all. Like, the whole thing it has a bullet core surrounded by rubber so that it can bounce, because it's not supposed to be aimed directly at somebody. But because it has that weight, it's just even more weight and force behind it. So that's why people are getting these damn injuries and stuff like that. But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. So yeah, defunding is just reallocating funds because they're using their funds for shit like that. They have these millions, like budgets that are millions of dollars, whereas like you look at funding for schools and stuff in the same neighborhoods, because we're looking at taxpayer dollars and all that. Schools without resources, schools that are overcrowded, kids that they have these programs where they're like, okay, well, we can't afford to just kind of pay off a lunch debt. So you got kids with debt in fucking elementary and middle school, things like that funds should be going to. We got security guards in schools, but not counselors and nurses.
No,
like
not security guards, police.
Yeah, police officers in schools.
We have
instead
LAUSD has their own police force.
So that's the shit right there. So that's what funds are going to instead of, but it's schools in LAUSD, they ain't got no nurses.
Right. We don't have, a lot of schools don't have, like the nurses,
or they
don't have full-time nurses. So the nurses will be at this school on Monday, at this school on Tuesday. Like, they move around. They don't have full-time nurses. So if a kid is sick,
or
you're
counselors.
leaving it, or counselors. So they're leaving it up to the teachers to determine if they need, or they're just automatically calling the parents. Like,
or they calling the police.
Right. So the only thing that we found is that the police, well, you guys probably know this, the police are basically there to harass Black and brown children.
Absolutely.
So police have never stopped a school shooting, ever. So when people say, oh, they're trying to take the police out of schools. Safer. Right. That's always been you want to take the police out of schools, you want more school shootings. They've never stopped a school shooting, a single one. The only thing they've done is harass Black and brown children, constantly stopping them, searching them, things like that. So there's no benefit to that. And they start at the elementary school level,
right,
arresting 6-year-olds, things like that. So
all they do is they start grooming kids for the prison industrial complex. That's all they do. It's like, so now by the time you get to high school, you're accustomed to being under surveillance, to being harassed, to being like, has become a normal part of your school experience. And then they don't have counselors. So like, of course, like I work in counseling or whatever. A job that I had applied for before I started working the job that I work now is actually for like, they wanted behavioral interventionists to go into schools, and they've been essentially like outsourcing those type of things. Instead of having an in-house school counselor, they've been having outside teams come in and paying them less. So instead of allocating funds to have an in-house school counselor, which you should have, they'll have someone like, if I was to work for that company, I would come in. Now, I don't have the same background as a school counselor. School counseling is like its own degree and its own educational path. That's not my background. So they'll have somebody like me who has like a broader counseling background or whatever, that wasn't like specifically focused on school. Like, I have some education background, but most people who work this job, that intervention, they don't have that background. So we're supposed to come to the school and deal with emotional issues, emotional issues, behavioral issues, physical stuff, like that's what they're doing. And then paying, why I didn't accept the job, because they want to pay pennies to have this third party come in and do that. They contract it out instead of paying a qualified school counselor to come in and do that. So defunding the police really just boils down to reallocating funds, taking some of them funds out of the police force, the police department, policing in general, and putting it into other areas in the community, and doing it in a way where it would minimize the need for police anyway, because there's not this great need for policing. Crime has decreased over time. Policing has not.
Policing has increased.
Right. So that's a problem. All right. So that's defunding the police. But then you have abolishing. So abolishing the police is there some nuance, because it what would kind of like replace it, there's not the same suggestion or solution by every person or group or whatever who is calling for like the abolishing of police or whatever. But the general concept. So instead of having police, having a system where community members are holding one another accountable. You can have something like restorative justice be an option for that, or you can have something like, let's say like a community guild essentially, or like a board type of thing that people will come to, but it's folks who are in that community, who from that community, like basically peer policing type of thing, but not with military grade weapons, not with systemic oppression, So basically, putting something different in place. So defunding is not getting rid of police. It's just kind of taking a lot of that stuff away, and also calling for them to not be using all these lethal.
Here's the thing, like, and so before I was for like abolish the police, but I hadn't heard the term defunding the police. So I think that more so aligns with it, because let's be fair, white people need to be stopped, and they're the most dangerous criminals in this country. We do need them to be policed. So if you defund them, take that money and put it towards community services, and let us self-police using those community service, and allow there to be a police force that is specifically used to stop the most dangerous criminals, which are white people, the mass shooters, these kind of people, the serial killers, right? Those kind of people who are just killing for the fun of it. No amount of community intervention is going to stop those kind of people. Right. Then yes, there needs to be some kind of a force out there to stop those psychos. You know what I mean? So there needs to be something there. But the same force does not need to stop those people and the guy sleeping in his car. Right. You don't need the same people to respond. Right. Clearly. I mean, I really think there could be, like a combination of some of the concepts that people talk about for defunding and some that they talk about for abolishing, because I do think kind of for those petty crimes and things like that it does make sense to have like your community members of, your peers, your neighbors, and that kind of stuff. Look at that and really try to go on a route of restorative justice. But in a situation of serial killers and mass shooters and rapists and stuff like that, folks who like abuse children and pedophiles and stuff, things that there has been plenty of research to kind of show that like these folks don't really rehabilitate. Like given the opportunity, they do the same shit again. That is where you would need like a trained force, to handle that or whatever. It's the same thing with like kind of abolishing prisons and stuff like that. I get the concept, but I do think like we have that segment of people where it's like, well, if they got to go somewhere, we got to do something with them because they exist. My other thing is with looking at like community policing is that who is the community? Because white folks policing each other. That's never going to work out. That's what they've been doing forever. And we see how that's worked. They don't hold each other accountable. So I think that we, have to basically have something in place where there can be more accountability, less lethal force used, but also being realistic in the fact that like there are people who can't be rehabilitated. I do believe in restorative justice for some situations. Like if somebody like stole something, like, okay, like, but there's levels to this shit. Like there are levels to crime. And it's been shown you can't really like rehabilitate a pedophile. Like there's these things they've tried, but ultimately it's kind of like you're constantly having to like stay on top of that. You can't really rehabilitate
a serial killer. Like this, just what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get the opportunity, they're gonna keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can keep getting away with it, they're gonna keep doing it. So, yeah. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up because I see there's been a lot of like folks conflating the two. They don't mean the same thing, but they are both, just alternatives to our current corrupt, crazy ass system. So,
yeah.
So
interesting concept, and I think you should, if you see somebody saying it's ridiculous because it sounds so out there, remind them that we defund everything else. We have defunded education. We have defunded mental health. We've defunded whatever the fuck we want to defund while we give money to police and military. So again, once shit hit the fan, no one asked, where's the stimulus money gonna come? Like, we find the money somehow, right? So we can defund the police. They don't need all this damn money.
They don't need millions. It's
hundreds of millions.
Yeah, like, and that's
depending
ridiculous.
on where you're at.
Yeah, but like it's ridiculous. That's very unnecessary.
Yeah. And if you look up your city's budget and see the percentage that the police get, then you'll see how necessary defunding it is. For LA, it was, I think, 54% of the entire city's budget was going to policing.
Just think about that though. Like, over half of LA big as fuck. Okay, so over half of the budget for Los Angeles, that's a crazy amount of money, and over half of it going to police. Like, that's crazy. Think
but
about
then when the teachers went on strike,
and all the schools, and think about like with a city that's so large, all of the kind of elements that make that up, like schools and things like hospitals, that kind of stuff that also require funding. What in the world?
There's no justification for the police to get over half. Like, there's no justification to even think that they're more than half as important as the services that a city provides.
And the services that people actually need.
Yeah.
And in a place where there's a huge amount of Black and brown people. Like, for my job, they were literally just talking about, the people that we serve, and they're like, 80% of the people that we serve are Black and brown folks, are people of color. 80, okay? And that's for LA. So it's like, really? Like, this is where the money is going to. So that policing, of course, is insidious, and of course it's like intentional. That's what system, when people like to reduce racism to like this minute thing to individuals.
Right.
This person said something about me, whatever. When it's like, it's a whole system, this shit is systematic, and it's like,
but I think
that's on another level.
They reduce it. Well, white people reduce racism to an individual level. One, because it absolves them they think it is.
It's not me, it's the system.
No.
I mean, it's not me, it's that other person.
It's the Confederate flag. It's them calling you a nigger. That's racism. It's not me, right? So they
or I don't say that, so I'm not racist.
Right. But they also, it allows them to believe that reverse racism is a thing. A Black person called me a cracker. That's racism too. It works, but it gives them this victimhood, and it allows them to escape accountability. So that's why they think. Well, that's why they tell themselves. But also, and I read another post today by Kinfolk Collective that how the same way that we
shout out,
we post, or oral history. How a lot of our history is not taught in schools, but we still know it from our parents, from our grandparents, etc. And she was saying, don't let white people fool you that their parents are not teaching them their history. Like, they know they're savages, essentially. Like, there's just no way that, like,
they're not oblivious. They like to play that way, but they're not.
Right. The descendants of Nazis keep their trophies. Like, they're very proud. And the defendants of the Confederacy, they keep those trophies. Like, they're very proud of who they are.
It's like, we watch Watchmen, bro. If you haven't watched Watchmen, just watch it.
Watch Watchmen on HBO.
So good. If you have access to that.
Yeah.
So good. But like Courtney was just talking about keeping trophies, like that's literally what happened in the show. This man, his ancestors or whatever, were part of the KKK, and he kept the regalia. Like, this is what the fuck they do. So all these stuff that have like that symbolism and all that, they fucking know. So they can play, the fool or whatever, and even if they're oblivious,
they might pretend, okay, that was if you're watching Finding My Roots, Oh man, that's so terrible. My family owned slaves. Man, it's so bad back then. You know what I mean? But they like try to separate themselves from it. But they know.
Yeah.
So when they try to pretend, the shit that I hate now is, oh, I can't believe it's still going on. Where the fuck have you been?
Where you
your
been?
Whole life?
You've been asleep.
So it's fake, I think. But
it's performative, definitely.
It's performative. But as we're finding out in my lovely family, I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes
they know. I think even if on the surface they're like, oh, I don't. Okay, if you don't know, this is because it's willful ignorance.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is not because it's not happening blatantly all the fucking time. This is because you are making the decision to close your eyes to certain things. You have, tinted your glasses to only see whatever the hell you want to see. That's a decision, but that's not a passive thing. That's active. That's something you chose to do. Like, I chose to be in my little bubble, and this is what I see, and this is how things look in my world. So, wow, I didn't know this was going on out there. Okay, because you made the decision to limit. You made the decision to limit your vision to only what you want to see, and that is privilege, because we walk around with this right here with this skin. We can't do that. Like, we don't have the option to walk around and be like, I can turn a blind eye to that. No, because I look like this. Like, so for even those people who, have that willful ignorance, the ability to even have that is still privilege. So I'm like, you ain't know? Okay, yeah, because you got the privilege of not knowing.
Yeah, so, yeah, speaking of willful ignorance.
Let me tell you, I swear, anytime I want to record, there's noise.
It's 7:00. Why are they cutting grass?
7 p.m. on a Saturday. Why are they cutting grass right now?
First of all, who has grass?
Honestly, because in our little neighborhood, our yards are not big. So like, and they've been doing this for a minute. So like, really?
No, they just started when you started recording, didn't they?
No, I'm saying, like, that's what I'm saying. It's been like, since they started like cutting the grass. I'm just like, ain't that much grass to cut. Are you cutting everybody's lawn? Because that don't make no sense. So it's very irritating and aggravating, and I don't know how that's going to impact this audio. So, but it just, of course, when we want to record something, that's when it happens, because all day that was not going on. I had class, we didn't, did other stuff. Courtney went on the wall, all kinds of stuff, and they ain't doing that. As soon as we sit down to record, that's the bullshit I be talking about, y'all. Anyway,
they're done. Oh,
they're not. All right, so I'm kind of shifting gears a little bit. Actually, just a slight shift, just a slight. It's not a full-on pivot or nothing. It's just a slight. All right. So something that is like, I guess you could say, like, it grinds my gears. Okay. So we're looking at, people who have been like victims of police brutality and just person after person. It's, this shit is every day. And so I see people saying like, say his name, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, it irritates me because like, say her name is a specific movement that was created because when things like this happen with like police brutality, male victims get attention and female victims, Black women weren't getting that same press, that same mobilizing behind them, the same rallying for them, the marches and the protests and stuff. Black women were not, and still not, to the same extent, getting that, right? So that was the whole point of the Say Her Name movement and that hashtag and that statement. And people every day like, say his name, say his name. I'm like, people already say his name.
Right.
They already say their name, they already say guy's name. So that's not the point. So, for at least for the folks who listen to me, if that's something that you've like adopted, please, I ask, like, don't say her name is specific. Say her name is just for her name. Say his name is not a thing. Right. It doesn't need to be a thing. Like, we are in a patriarchy. So.
For context, Breonna Taylor was killed 2 months before George Floyd.
Right. So
that's why Say Her Name is a thing, because no one did shit until he was killed, and she was.
And then when folks start saying like, "Hey, so she was killed, and where's this, outcry? Where's this backlash? Where's all this?" When people start responding to all of this stuff about George Floyd by saying, "Well, what about Breonna?"
Right. Then
that's when folks gonna be like, "Say his name." I'm like, okay, like, bro.
Then she got kind of, I don't want to say luckily, but
there's been like a resurgence of like,
her case got brought back up again, because of him. But when we're out here getting murdered in the same, brutalized, raped in the same shit, our names are not lifted. So that's why I said her name was created.
Right, and we're also on the front lines. Let's be clear.
Every time
them lines, all you got to do is look at a picture. Like, we're always the ones on those front lines. Always.
Essentially, what happens is Black women show up for Black women. Black women show up for Black men. Black men show up for Black men. The end. Like, they don't. If George Floyd wouldn't have died, Black men would have never shown up for Breonna Taylor. Which is why, honestly, whatever, cancel me. I don't give a fuck. Like, when George Floyd initially died, I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, not like I don't care that he died, but I'm not about to waste like a ton of my energy. And I've been, for the record, not just him, but I've stopped putting a ton of energy behind
like lifting up
the names of Black men. First, because Black men are trash.
That's a whole other. Listen, I mean, this is not a secret, so. Because this is the thing, Black men do not support. Black women en masse support black men, whether we have an interest in them or not. Neither one of us concerned about fucking these dudes. We still show up for them. Black men don't show up for Black women. They barely show up for the Black women who are like, mothering their kids.
Right.
They show up if they want to get something from it, but that's it. It's not en masse. It's on a very individual scale where it's like, okay, let me do this to get what I want. So my priority is not uplifting the name of Black men because they're uplifted. Like,
well, yeah. So there's that. But if I were to get murdered right now, and maybe times are changing. Right now, because of the moment, maybe my name gets mentioned. But let's say 6 months ago, if I were to get murdered on camera the same way George Floyd did, Black men would not have shown up for me.
Right. It'll be Black women.
Yeah, but that's why I was really like, whatever. I stopped giving my energy to men who would shit on me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If they were alive. So it's kind of like what happened was, not saying I think they deserve to die, especially not in this fashion. Not saying that at all. And I definitely support the movement completely. Yeah. Fuck the police, tear all that shit down, burn it down. I don't give a fuck. It's just me putting, as a Black woman, putting my energy constantly behind Black men. And then it comes out, they used to beat Black women. Like, Tim Sterling, was he a rapist? I don't remember. Or Stephon Clark, how he hated Black women. You know?
These are the main ones. They're like, he didn't even like Black women. He talked down on them all the time. He said they weren't, they weren't shit, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. That's how it always turns out. And so definitely for me, I have, which folks who listen to the show already know, I say Black women over everything, period. Mm-hmm. This is not, there's no caveats. Like, that's who my priority is. Black women over everything, everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody else got to follow on after that, because we are the only ones who lift each other up. Ain't nobody else in mass lifting up Black women but Black women. Mm-hmm. We also be lifting up every damn body else and taking care of everybody else. But I'm just like, I'm not with all that. My priority, my concern, taking care of Black women, uplifting Black women. So that's why I'm like, okay, I didn't post, such and such George Floyd, but absolutely Breonna, absolutely Sandra, absolutely, like, that's where my energy has to go, because who else is giving us their energy? Like, it's only us. It's always us. And like, it just really blows my mind, because there's an entitlement when it comes to Black women's labor. There's so much entitlement from every damn body. Every demographic feels entitled to our labor, or they want to piggyback. They want to attach themselves on. What about us? Blah, blah, blah. That's what folks like to do. But we definitely don't get that same energy when it comes to us getting support. It's just, no, we want to use your labor and want to latch onto you, but we cannot reciprocate. And I'm just over it. So when I say Black women over everything, that's what the fuck I mean. And so that's why I say her name. Yeah. So just to reiterate, of course we don't support people being murdered. No, absolutely not. And that shit is still, I'm not saying it's okay. It's absolutely not. I absolutely just don't support that or whatever. But at the same time, there's enough people lifting his name up. Yeah. Me not lifting it up is not changing. I think it really just got to a point where I was tired of doing it to only
be shitted on by them after they died. You know what I mean? Like when their tweets will resurface or their record will resurface. I'm like, oh, because I don't care about your record. I'm not saying that makes you worthy of death. But if your record is, I attacked a black woman, I killed a black woman, I beat a black woman, then yeah, kind of fuck you. That's kind of the point I get to. I'm like, yeah, no, you would have fucking killed me if you had a chance. Why should I march for you?
Or you're and it's something I always think about. Like, you know, I've mentioned before, like especially when I was in Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta was black as hell, whatever. I underwent like so much harassment from black men, so much, like daily, y'all. Like nobody should have to like live like that, bro. Like the shit was ridiculous. Where I'm like every time I leave the house, I'm like, let me get my mind right to be talked to any kind of way, catcalled, followed, surrounded, cornered. Like, let me just, you know what I'm saying, prepare myself for that mentally every fucking day. So these are the same men who are being brutalized, right? So it's like, and I'm out there. Like, I would still be out there. I'm like, this could easily have been, like, any of them could have easily have been one of them dudes who catcalled me on the street and then called me a bitch because I didn't want to talk to them, or followed me in the car, or tried to corner me, whatever. Like, it's the same thing, right? So it does become, like, it wears you down to be like,
it's like you're fighting for your own oppressor,
right?
In a way.
I'm like, I'm still showing up for you. Like, it's like an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, even though you don't give a fuck about me, I'm still showing up for you. That shit is old.
Yeah, it's odd because, it's because my father is a black man, or because my brother, you know what I mean? It's like, that's what you see when you see these men being brutalized. Like, I feel like I'm fighting for my father, but at the same time, I'm also fighting for the people who would oppress me or wouldn't show up for me. So it's kind of like, it's a very odd place to be in. And especially as a queer person, it's even getting to that point.
And that adds another layer, too, because you already know they don't give a fuck about us.
Yeah.
Like, they see us as...
literally will be the one to kill you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. They'll be the one to kill us. They'll be the one to say, like, oh, like, that's not valid. Like, basically to invalidate our queerness and be like, oh, no, you just need a guy, basically. You need a guy to fuck you right. You need this, you need that. So it's like, okay, you don't even see me as valid. Like, all you do is mistreat me, talk down to me, harass me, bash me, whatever. Like, and these are the people I'm still showing up for. And it just really, like, when we did the Black Lives Matter thing out here, and that guy was like, oh, it's so good to see black women showing up for black men. And we're like, nigga, what? When I say, me and Courtney both were just like,
that was his first protest, gotta be.
It had to have been his first protest, because we're like, bruh, we've been in these streets. Like, I know we had to, like, give each other the look, like, this nigga can't be serious. Like, this nigga tripping, you know, because that was the wild. I'm like, this wild. You talking wild right now, because I'm like, this is what we do. Look around you, bruh. It's black women everywhere. We out here, black queer people, black women. We make up the majority.
Black queer people been on the front line.
We've been out here.
The people who started
Stonewall,
Black Lives Matter, both started by black queer people. And then people come behind and erase it, I'll say his name. It's it's like the ultimate slap in the face, you know what I mean?
Even Me Too. Like, okay, that's a black woman.
started by, black woman.
And they want to be like, oh, well, now these white women want to attach on to that. I'm like, bruh, y'all better give this woman her credit where it's due, because, so I've made it a point to where I'm just like, I prioritize black women over everything, period. And because, too, these movements, so it's like, already uplifting men, don't say nothing about women, murdering trans folks, especially trans women. We just had 2 more black trans women, they're dead, like, just this week, right? So, but these the folks, like Stonewall, that's a black trans woman right there at the forefront of that. These are the folks who are the pioneers and who are, like, really spearheading these changes and getting slaughtered in the street by black men, by the black men they show up for. Like, so I'm just like, look, it got to be black women over everything. It just period. Like I can't, because we got. Like we are the prime, like the definition, the prime example of like we got. Nobody embodies that the way black women do.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I think it was Angelica Ross, but don't quote me on this. She made a post about basically how not enough celebrities had said anything about the trans sister who got beat up.
Ayana Dior?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Frenchie Davis, who is bisexual, if I'm correct.
I think so. Hold on, y'all. That Ayana Dior was a prime example. Like folks just sat around and watched her be attacked. Like what? Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. This shit.
Frenchie Davis commented basically like black women don't owe anybody shit, cis or trans. Some shit. It was like the most bizarre.
So she's saying black women don't have to show up for other black women? Is that what she's saying?
Yeah, and I was just like, I responded, she basically asked you to show up for yourself. Like, I don't even understand.
Right.
She's like, we don't owe anybody shit. I'm tired of us being like the mule. And I'm like, she's literally asking you to show up for yourself, like right here. So I was very
this is not a mule situation, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can see if it's
but to me, she said like sister trans, we always gotta do shit for other people. You know what I mean? Like it sounded like she tried to make it seem like she wasn't being transphobic, but I think she was slipping in some.
Yeah, it sounded like some
like you're trying to
veiled.
Yeah, trying to other.
Because how you gonna say cis and trans, but like this is literally a trans woman we're talking about. So it sounds like very thinly veiled transphobia. When really you saying like black women ain't got to show up for anybody, including trans women, and it makes no sense. Like if anybody we need to show up for is each other. Fuck everybody else. Honestly, we don't got to show up for nobody else. But that don't make no kind of sense. It sounds like some bullshit to me. It sounds like some thinly veiled transphobia. I can't get with it. Okay, so I don't know how we're doing on time.
Not good.
How much time has it been? Okay. Look and see. Your vision better than mine.
Look where?
It will probably show you on the live.
I'm gonna have to click.
It don't show you how long you've been on it? What this one say?
Nothing.
What?
It's 7:20.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Come on, technology. You're supposed to let us know something. All right. So, okay. It's only like a couple more things that I want to talk about on this because I don't want it to be like outrageously long. And we, you know, once we start, especially we start talking about black shit, you know, we be going in. All right. So I want to talk about this idea of like black.
What's up, Asian?
This idea of black liberation. And it's so fun. Wait, which Asian? My sister? Okay. Mm-hmm. It's funny that she popped up because actually me and her having a conversation about this on my Facebook thread. So I want to talk about black liberation and this concept of allies. All right. So I've mentioned very briefly, but I didn't go into detail. Like this was a while ago on the podcast. I mentioned that I don't believe in allies when it comes to black liberation. I had some folks question me about it. And I'm like, I said what I said. I don't believe in allies when it comes to black liberation, okay? Now, one of the people who articulated part of what I was like feeling was Feminista Jones. I mentioned her before. That's Bay right there, okay? So.
Not me.
Anyway, so Feminista Jones like did this thread years ago. This was probably back in, hold on, let me see.
2013, 2014.
I think it was 2014. No, it was 2015.
Okay, whatever.
So Feminista Jones did this thread back in 2015 talking about this basically the concept of allyship and why white folks, when it comes to like black liberation, can't be allies, right? I won't go through the whole thing. What I'll do is like I'll link the thread in the show notes so that y'all can go read it because I don't want to like misquote her or anything like that. I'm just going to give my perspective, right? So here's the thing. When it comes to like black people like getting free, you know, for white people, we're in a white supremacist society. White people get all the benefits from this. Like they get all the benefits, right?
Right.
So when you think of the concept of an allyship, think about it like countries forming alliances. When countries form alliances, they do so because it's of mutual benefit to both of them. So it might be a situation where it's like, oh, well, you have oil resources. You have these exports that we can't like have domestically or whatever. Like you grow these plants that we don't have the right weather to grow here or whatever.
It's like a trade partnership.
So it's like a trade partnership, whatever.
About, yeah.
So there's a mutual benefit there.
Or an allyship in war or something where we're going to fight for each other.
Right. Or we're going to band together and fight this.
We can't fight for white folks.
This common enemy or whatever. So anyway, so you think about an alliance in that sense, both or all parties benefit from it in some kind of way. Right. And it's not just benefit, but there's like there's a balance of benefit. So it's not like one is benefiting way more than the other. Okay. So it's like more of an even playing field. So it's like, okay, from us exchanging these resources, we both get things that we vitally need or whatever, or that we want, whatever. So something like that, right? Whether, even if it's just money, it's like, okay, we get this, oil, y'all get this money, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's a mutual benefit there. Okay. So when it comes to Black liberation, for Black people, our benefit is freedom. Our benefit is being freed from a system that was specifically designed to oppress us. What is the parallel benefit that white people have? There is none. How can they be our ally when?
Shut up.
How can they be our ally when it will require, like, where Black liberation requires dismantling a system that they inherently benefit from?
It's the exact opposite of an allyship, right?
Correct.
They have to lose in order for us to win.
Correct.
So,
right.
They have no incentive to invest in our liberation
because they're already benefit. Like, things are already in their favor. So, by something no longer being in their favor, that's an L for them. So inherently, just by design, it can't be an alliance, right? So they have to be willing to like relinquish some things, relinquish that privilege or whatever. And it's like, they can talk about it, but like for real, who won't do that, right? So they're like, shit, I'm good. Ultimately, because that desire for self-preservation is going to trump you, even if you're, an idealist or whatever, like your pie in the sky dreams is like, yes, I want to help the Blacks or whatever.
That sounds so good.
But, being like, I want to help the Blacks, yes, I want to do the right thing, that kind of thing. That, when it come down to it, it's like, but damn, I got to give up everything. I can't keep a little bit of the privilege.
You think, like, just think about it like this. If we know racism is a system, right? And just take one part of the system, like jobs, right? Where Black people are underemployed and we have a higher unemployment rate, right? Because they see our names and they're more likely to throw it in the trash. Well, to dismantle that part of racism, white people are going to have to start losing jobs so they can get in those positions, right? How many of them are willing to lose their jobs for us?
Right.
None of them.
Correct.
0%.
That's the thing. It's like, okay.
Well, this is Serena Williams' husband. One.
Look. Got one.
But he's rich already.
He's willing to risk it all for Serena.
Right.
Okay,
but
that's the difference.
Think about it. He's rich already, right? He's set for life. Yeah. So he really didn't give up anything.
Right.
Let's just think about it, right?
Right.
And he's set to make money, like his royalties off of that website, right? So he's going to be making money for that for the rest of his life, right?
He said, their daughter said,
they're fine. He's really not giving up anything. Right. He's donating $1 million. Like, if you can donate $1 million, you're fine.
Right.
Right? It says like 2 minutes left on the line.
On the line.
We have to redo it. So that's kind of the thing, right? Who's going to give up anything? Not just a small piece.
Yeah.
Are they going to give up? Are they going to give us access to better schooling so their kids can
even
go
some,
to
I was about to say, even like with school, like think about like an Ivy League school or whatever. All these different practices. Oh, you know what's a good one? Housing.
Yeah, I just said
housing. Oh, you did? Oh.
Yeah. I was like that. Well, I was like, the kids, are they going to give up their places of where the kids go to school? They're going to give up their neighborhoods.
The neighborhood, yeah. Because so many things have been, so many like policies
resources
and like
gerrymandering
and all kind of stuff have been adjusted to benefit them. Like they're like, you know what? Now we have an influx, of white people in this area. Let's redraw these lines. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Right. We got white flight. White flight is a thing because they can go where the hell they want to go and benefit, right? Mm-hmm. So So that's why it's like, okay, think about an alliance. There's no comparable benefit, whatever they actually have to lose. They have to give up something. And when it comes down to it, if you're like, you know what, this person is homeless, right? I can help them. I have a home. I can't say, oh, well, they can just stay at my house. No, I can give them some money for some food to eat. No, for it to be balanced, like, you know what, you got to give up your house, take that money, so both of y'all can, you know, have a place to live, but you're gonna be in a smaller house. Your house gonna be smaller.
You're gonna have to, yeah.
They're gonna be like, hell no. Are you willing to downsize? Right? Are you willing to downsize so that we can both have? You got your 4-bedroom. Are you willing to downsize so we can both have a 2-bedroom?
No, they're not going.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So
we're about to restart it, Asia. She said we went from redlining to rezoning.
Yeah.
Shared IGTV?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. It's like, it's not just about like, oh yeah, I'll help them out. This is like white folks' perspective is being an ally. Like I had posted a status on Facebook saying like white folks are very attached to the term ally, but in my opinion, it's really just the modern day way of saying I've always been good to you people. Like, I do good stuff for the blacks, you know. I don't say the N-word, you know. It's like those little things that they can still do that and be comfortable. It's going to require extreme discomfort for there to actually be equity. So you got it? No. So at the bottom, swipe. No. Go back. Swipe the other way. The very bottom thing. Oh. I got to get this part cut out. Like, Sharmane, can you cut this out, please? All right. So anyway, it will require them, you know, relinquishing things or whatever. So them saying, oh, I'm an ally or whatever, it's in those easy things to do where it could be like, I don't say the N-word. Because they feel like I don't do these particular things, that means that I'm not racist. But that's not true. Because when it comes down to it, like when it comes down to doing the real
racism,
work,
you are a racist.
When it comes down to doing the real work, when it comes down to like, are you willing to totally uproot your family? Like in the house example. So you willing to uproot your family and totally adjust your way of living for this cause? We don't have the same thing because it's like, we can be allies because that's our reality.
So you think about, because I want to give examples. There have been like abolitionists, right? So yes. There have been examples of white people who are willing to risk it.
Yes.
For that, those
just not on a large scale.
So, but they would not be considered allies, right? Those would be considered, what's the word?
Co-conspirators. So that's my point. So it's like, because the thing is,
because they're risking themselves,
right? And they have things they have to give up or whatever. It requires sacrifice, like not just saying some cute talking points. Not just being like, I'm not racist, don't say the N-word, making a little video, a little post. It really requires sacrifice if you're really about that life. Like, it really requires those folks who like legitimately put their bodies on the line. This woman that I interned with, I did a fellowship with Spirit House, and one of the founders, Ruby Sales, she is like pretty well known in terms of like social justice, civil rights and stuff like that. So she was just saying how like, you know, there were those the abolitionists were actually about their life, where it's like they literally like, I'm gonna put my body in front of yours and take this bullet. That's not the same as like, I'm gonna do this post.
It's come on, or posting Black Lives Matter. I'm not impressed.
Right.
Saying I didn't even put that damn square. I was like, this is so performative. Yeah, it's performative.
It's very performative because ultimately you still get to live your regular ass life, and this isn't impacting you. But like for those folks who were legit willing to like, I'm gonna be a shield. Like, I mean, legit, she had somebody take a bullet. Like, he took a bullet for her. That's when you really about that life. When you're like, okay, I see that this is so messed up that like I recognize. But the thing is, it's a constantly active thing, and white folks are very passive. It's an active thing to work to be anti-racist.
So perfect example is I posted, there was a white guy, and it was actually a very odd interaction because we've been friends probably on Facebook probably over a decade now, and he
problem
had,
number one. No,
he'd been fine for the longest, and you know, he's gone to protests. He usually says things like about Black Lives Matter, and but he said something about, he posted words of George Bush, right? Basically calling for unity or some bullshit that whatever the fuck George did. And I basically checked him on it, and I was like, I know you mean well, but I just want to kind of remind you that part of white supremacy is that they get to basically be forgiven, right? They get to inflict all this harm, cause all this harm on our communities, and then they get to go and live these cute little lives. And George was like painting, wasn't he on Ellen's show? And oh, look at George, look how cute he is, and all this shit.
Or when he was next to
Michelle Obama, and they're passing each other candy and shit. And I told him, I was like, honestly, part of the reason why white supremacy, part of the reason why it gets to keep living is because y'all keep forgiving them for everything that was just a part of, that was like, part of his job.
Like, this is not, people make the mistake of thinking like this is not inherently who they are versus like, this is just, that's just something they did. This is who they are. Like, understand how racism, this shit is ingrained.
So he basically came back with, I've done my part. That's literally what he told me. I've done my part.
What I say, I've always been good to you people.
Yeah, I've done my part. You're going to chastise me, take this shit somewhere else. You can unfriend me. I've done my part. I think Bush is doing the right thing here by claiming unity. And I was like, first of all, I could spaz. And I didn't. I
was very shocked because I'm like, you could have justifiably spazzed.
I could have. And I was like, because we've been friends, I almost thought he had been hijacked.
You're like, who hacked you?
Because, I was just like, first of all, because he's like, I'm not going to take it down. First of all, I didn't actually take it down. All I said was, when you post things like this, because it was at a time when they, put that fucking square up, like, amplify Black voices. I'm a Black voice. I'm coming to you and I'm saying George Bush has done a lot of shit, that hurt the Black community. His voice is not what the fuck we want to hear right now. Like, maybe you should take him down. That ain't it. And he just went, I was like.
But see, that's when it really comes to light, where it's like, you know what? It's all cute or whatever, and they can say all they want to say, but it's like, ultimately, they still want to talk over you. Like, in real life, like in reality, they still think that what they have to say is more important. They still think that their performative stuff is more important than your real ass life. They still think that they know better. So they still look to themselves as the authority, as opposed to people who are actually living this Black experience. Mm-hmm. It's arrogant. Like, when we talk about caucasity, bruh, like, I've never, like, the audacity of white people is unparalleled. Nobody has the audacity that white folks have. Because that's really how they think. They're really like, it really is I've been good to you people. Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, blah, blah. And you just need to accept, it's like that kind of thing. And I'm like, we telling you that ain't it. Like, you want to make your little bootleg sign? We like, no, bro, get in the front. Be a human shield. Like, that's what your value can be. Mm-hmm. They ain't trying to hear that. They're like,
yeah. So I would say maybe we should give them some examples. Like, you want to be an ally. How about you try to be a co-conspirator?
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, y'all need to really separate from that word and really focus on being anti-racist and being a co-conspirator. Yeah. Because we didn't say, the thing is, white folks have to, it's an active thing. They have to actively work to be anti-racist because the racism is inherent. So it's like, for you to be, it's not saying, oh, I'm not racist. Like, you are. But if you were to be anti-racist, that means you are actively fighting against that in very tangible, specific ways regularly, not just one day a week, not just, it's like in your life. Yeah.
I think a big issue is not just with white people, but with human beings in general. They don't like to change, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when it gets to a certain age. Like, for me, I'm extremely open, probably too open. And that's something I will address with Daniela. I'm very open, right? But a lot of people don't like to admit that they were wrong, or they can't change their mind. For whatever reason, I'm stuck. You can't change my mind, never gonna change my mind.
A lot of that is pride.
Pride, ego, etc. Yeah. Karen's Gone Wild is a page to check out for some good laughs.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Also, check out Sarah Cooper, Sarah CPR.
Oh, yeah.
Her shit's hilarious.
She be tripping me out. And then, there's like, I have to find it. There's a page on Facebook where there's like, it's like some white white folks, mainly white women, and they basically like you tag them and they come and drag other white people who say stupid stuff.
Oh, nice.
They just be like, you know what, we got it. Like, and they just come and drag them, you know. That's just
that's cool. What was I saying? Ancient distractions. Oh, okay. I was talking about, it was something I saw on, I think this is a white woman. I think her name was Natalie Portman or Olivia Wilde. I cannot tell them apart.
Okay.
So basically,
they are both white women.
Do they look alike?
I don't know.
One of the two.
I know what they each look like, but I can't do a mental side by side right now.
Okay, one of the two, or maybe neither one of them. I'm not sure. So there was
some celebrity white woman.
Yes, there was a black lady talking about, she had a conversation with, I'm gonna say Natalie Portman for now. We'll check this later. She basically, you know, kind of had a conversation with her, and Natalie was like, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, like, because the lady asked her, like, you know, was talking to her about defunding the police, and she's like, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, like, my whole life the police have protected me. Like, I've called the police, they've come, they've protected me, they've helped me my whole life. So it makes me so uncomfortable to hear you say defund the police.
That's the point.
Right.
They're going to have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah,
that's why they ain't allies.
But she was like, but I hear what you're saying. Give me some resources. I'm going to read. As, you know, I don't know if this is her friend. I don't know what their relationship was. But she was like, it's making me so uncomfortable. Just tell me, or whatever. You know what I mean? And she said she came back and she was like, okay, I get it now. So my safety, the safety that the police provide me directly contributes to your unsafety,
right,
as a black person. I get it. Yeah, I get it now. But I never got that before because I've never, I've never seen that, or I've never made that correlation.
Because privilege.
But my point is, there has to be something in there for her to even try and listen. Yeah. And a lot of people don't have that part. They don't have the receptiveness to say, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's just true. Saying, right, wait, because like the police have always been there for me. Like, why would I question that?
It's a prime example. You know how people be like, oh, well, I never went through that. You know,
yeah.
Like,
what's the bias? Fuck, I need my list of biases.
Oh yeah, but it is a type of bias though, where it's like, okay, well, if I'm saying, yo, like the police target me, the police do this, and you're like, that's not my experience with police. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But for some people, and for white people, but part of white privilege is the fact that you can live your life like this doesn't happen because it doesn't happen to me. That is like a huge perk of privilege. We don't have that privilege to be like, oh, well, this don't happen. Like, we see it. We're like, we see this happening to folks who look like us. White folks are like, I never seen that. Does that really happen? It's like they're in a whole other world. They're in a little privilege bubble.
Yeah. Trevor Noah did like a little thing on that. And he was like when black people say, I'm just walking down the street and they grab me and throw me against the wall and search me. And a white person hears that and they're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And then black people are saying, I know it doesn't make sense. Right. And they're like,
that's against the law. That would be,
yes, I know. And they're like, you can't visualize something that you've never seen.
Right. Like, yeah, that's literally the point.
That's why they don't do it to you.
Right.
That because you have this cognitive dissonance.
And that's why it's such an issue, because it's like the reaction that you have where you're like, what? Like, no way, that kind of thing. Like, there's no way this can happen. That's unlawful. That's crazy. Like, that sounds like some dystopia. Yes, that's our life. Like, that is what actually happens. But to them, it sounds like this far-fetched, ridiculous, exaggerated thing. They think that our very real day-to-day things are exaggerations. And so that's how they respond. Like, it can't be that bad. No way it can be that bad. It is that bad. It's worse, So that's part of what privilege affords them. That's part of that. It's like, you got on little privilege goggles. You don't have to see that. So people don't really understand like that there's a huge disconnect or whatever. And that's why there's not an alliance, because like, how are you going to be my ally? Like, we ain't even on the same field. Like, we're not even looking at things from the same perspective. When you think about an alliance, because you're looking at like this mutual benefit, then you come to a common ground where there's a common vision that you all are seeing. We're not even living in the same reality. How are you going to be my ally? It's going to take a lot of work for you to fight against all those benefits that are ingrained or whatever, and understanding that like you will never get to the end of that journey. You have to spend the rest of your life fighting it, actively fighting it day after day. You're not going to get to a point where it's like, I fought and boom, I've achieved, peak like allyship, or I've achieved peak co-conspirator, I've achieved peak peak anti-racist. No, you're going to have to fight it for the rest of your life. If you're really about that life, you're going to have to fight it for the rest of your life, because as you navigate through the earth, you still got privilege. It's not like you get to, not revoke. What's the word? Like you give something up? Not revoke, but you don't get to basically like just give up your privilege or whatever. Like you don't get to just be like, all right, I'm gonna opt out. You still got it. As you're fighting this day by day, like you still are actively living in your privilege. So that's the difference. Like, so we can't be allies because it's like the playing field is not even.
Relinquish.
That's the word. Thank you, baby. Sister. Well, thank you, Asia. So yeah, relinquish. Like you can't.
Degrees, man.
They can't relinquish their privilege. So it's to be a co-conspirator, to work toward being anti-racist. Like you have to continuously work toward or whatever. And folks are just like, honestly, they don't want. If they are honest, they don't want to do that. It's hard work. It's a lot of work, and it still ain't as hard as what we got to do. Period. Like they still get to walk through the world with privilege, but for those folks who are performative, they want to be like, oh, well, I went to the march and I had my sign and I don't say the N-word. And, I tell my friends not to say the N-word. And they do these performative things and they got to post it all to social media because it's a performance. Because if you really about that life, you just doing this for social media clout, so where you're like, this is me at the march with my sign and I got to, post pictures. We were out in the streets. We didn't post no pictures.
We didn't even have our phones.
We didn't even have our phones. So
left that shit in the car.
Right. So that's the thing. So I'm like, okay, that's the thing. If you're just doing it for to be seen, then that's what your motivation is. You're not actually trying to be anti-racist. You're not actually trying to do the work for real. You just want to have the appearance and then be so self-righteous about it too. Then be like, but I showed up and I did this and I did that. And that's what I mean about I've always been good to you people. Mm-hmm. It's a performative thing because in your heart, when it come down to it, are you willing to put your body on the line? Absolutely not. So, are you willing to do the work? Absolutely not.
Humans, right, at our core are selfish beings, right? Is what they always say. So what the whole I've always been good to you thing is everything that a white person does at the very end of it is self-serving, right?
Right.
So that's why when we call them out, they're like, wait, but I did, the things that they're doing are to make themselves feel good.
It's to assuage that white guilt.
Yeah.
What happened?
No, Asia's saying something. Oh, police have the privilege of taking off their uniform, but you can't hide your skin color. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's why it's some bullshit when people say Blue Lives Matter. I'm like, y'all don't know the other shit.
But we already know that's some bullshit because they have a problem with black. That's the word they have a problem with.
And because at the end of the day, okay, you have cops that are black and they still get treated the same. So when
they take their uniform off, they just
sometimes even in the uniform.
Yeah, but they think they fake.
Yeah, so
pretending.
So that's the thing. Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on, relevant to Black liberation. Courtney silly. Y'all couldn't see her. She just touched my knee when I said last thing I want to touch on. But anyway, so this conversation of reparations. Now, this piece that I actually want to mention actually has nothing to do with white folks, right? It's about Black folks. So, I was on a Kinfolk Collective post, and so basically folks were talking about, reparations and, essentially it was just supposed to be kind of like a fairly light post, like, what would you do? Like if we got such and such amount of money or whatever for reparations, like what you gonna do with the money? And people just, how Black, we are like the masters at humor and just like we unparalleled. We're unparalleled when it comes to humor and stuff. So folks are going in about, I'm about to buy a giraffe. I'm about to put, some spinners on a Accord, like just, crazy stuff, and it's just, we having a good time. Here go this chick talking about,
oh no.
We really need to, we need to invest in the community and Black folks need to, with reparations, like she basically saying like, Black folks need to build community with their reparations or whatever. Now, on a surface level, folks might be like, okay, what's wrong with that? But I just want to tell you what's wrong with that, right? Because I had to tell her what was wrong with that. And because she was very self-righteous And the way she coming across, like, you know, like she was chastising people. And I'm like, okay, let me tell you how you got all this fucked up. Let me go ahead and let you know. Ooh. So let me get out. First of all, when you think about reparations is money owed. Reparations is not a handout, right? Speak on it. It's money owed. This is money that like not just our ancestors, but us too, that we have. It's like basically unpaid wages. We have ancestors who built this country. We've sustained this country. We have not been compensated accordingly. Mm-hmm. So reparations is that compensation. Is no amount they can give us that would even come close to actually compensating us. So let's be clear on that. Let's be very clear. It's no amount, nothing they can actually give us that will adequately compensate us. But still, they still need to, you know, run them coins. So folks get reparations. Blah blah blah. It's basically rooted in respectability to be like, this is what you need to do with your money. Now, all Black folks, like, we are oppressed. We work. We, you know, work a lot in a country that, or the society that don't care about us and that basically just like, you know, brings us down and stuff like that. So it's our right to do whatever the fuck we want to do, honestly. If reparations like is a thing that were to actually happen, we are not obligated to do some specific things with that. We can do whatever we want to do. Somebody want to legit buy a damn giraffe, that is their prerogative.
Shoot, I'm buying me some.
Some what?
I'm not. I'm working on my mouth.
Okay. Anyway, so it's our right to do whatever we want to do. Mm-hmm. So to put these like caveats or to put these like requirements on it is just respectable. Mm-hmm. And because you're saying, okay, Bill, what community are you talking about? So are you talking about us investing in systems that oppress us, like capitalism? Mm-hmm. So everybody want to say, start a business. First of all, everybody don't want to start no damn business. Everybody don't want to be a business owner. Secondly, all we do is damn work. So can we take a break? And I was telling her, I was like, you know, it's so ridiculous that we can't even hypothetically enjoy ourselves. Like, this is just a hypothetical situation. We're talking, here you come policing what people do with their money. We have a lot of respectability politics like ingrained in our culture. White supremacy, man. And that's what it is, white supremacy, because ultimately that just really goes back to this mindset of like, oh, well, the reason that, you know, Black folks are doing bad is because they don't invest in their community. They don't do this, they don't do that, which is all a fucking lie. We have had Black communities that have, you know, been thriving and stuff like that they literally burned to the ground. More than one. This ain't happened just one time. So It ain't like we have never gone that route of like, okay, let's have all these things that we just sustain ourselves and let's do this and let's do that. We've done that and they have literally burned that shit to the ground. So for you to come and be self-righteous and be like, you know, we need to do this. People do that, and guess what? Still were oppressed, still got burned down, still dealt with all the same issues. Let folks have some joy, some leisure, some reprieve, however they can get it. If that means they want to buy a damn giraffe, so be it. But it's no person's place to be policing how folks spend their money. And really, it's just it's respectability politics. So it's the white supremacy, it's capitalism, because you're like, start a business. When you get your stimulus, you should blah, blah, blah. Yeah. No, everybody don't want to do that shit. If somebody want to go and spend that money on whatever they want to spend, they want to go take a trip, they want to go, that's their prerogative. And the thing is, like, in the grand scheme of things, and as much oppression as we deal with, we should be able to take a break sometimes, rest sometimes, have a good time sometimes. So
yeah, so just thinking, this is how I think about it. And unfortunately, we were born into a capitalist society that requires our labor, right? Oftentimes free labor or extremely underpaid. But we, as human beings, were not meant to be born to work and then die. Like, we were not meant to just work. Like, that's not what we're here for. They enslaved our ancestors and made them work for free.
And then they just funnel us into a prison industrial complex to get us to do the same thing, because prison labor is slave labor. Like, make no mistake about it, is slave labor by a different name. You got folks who are, prison labor sustains huge corporations for pennies. It's slave labor. It ain't no other way to put that.
Right. Not even corporations, right? We're talking about out here, the firefighters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slaves fight fires in California. Mm-hmm. And then when they get out of prison, if they get out, they can't fight fires anymore. So
they can't get those wages. They can't count that as like, oh, I had this training or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm struggling to get a job because I have a record.
Right. So because we need you to go back to prison, because we need your free labor.
But you can package your stuff for Starbucks, and you can fight these fires, and you can, do these things for Victoria's Secret. But can you get a job at any of those when you get out?
No. So again, your body needs breaks, and it's okay. In your mind. So like, first of all, I really, because a lot of people talk about like this stupid shit coming up on, I think, July 7th, which is, I don't understand that one. I wish somebody would help me out. The boycott thing. Yeah. I think, and I get it. Like, Black people are hopeful, and we're like the most hopeful people on earth. To still have hope after all this shit, like, to still have hope is crazy to me. Yeah. Everyone's better than me, because I have no hope. Like,
hope has sustained Black people. Like, hope has kept our people alive. Honestly, like, that's the only reason that, like, we're not extinct. You know what I'm saying? After being subjected to hundreds of years of genocide, because that's what it is. Yeah. We are the only people who've been subjected to this duration of genocide, and we still here. It's hope. Right. We still here. Like, you see how they decimated Native Americans. You see how even
they're still here, barely hanging.
Yeah, they're still here, but I mean, like, in the numbers that we have.
Yeah.
Because it's still, in both cases, it's genocide. Mm-hmm. We still hanging on.
Yeah. But, and I think, so cool, that's, a lot of people have hope, but we have to get to a point when we realize that white people are not going to allow us to survive and beat them using their system.
Right.
So we're not going to be able to boycott our way to freedom. We're not going to be able to vote our way to freedom. Right. That shit is not going to work. However,
that's the whole point of dismantling.
Right. You see, in Georgia, a perfect example. Y'all can try to vote your way to freedom. They're going to find a way to stop you.
Yeah.
They built the system. It is their system.
Right.
You cannot beat them using their system.
Right.
We cannot boycott to beat. We cannot boycott to beat capitalism. It doesn't make sense.
And riots do work. I mean, people who, they're another respectability thing where folks are like, you're destroying your own community. Okay, it's bullshit.
It's not our community.
No, it's not. But you see what actually gets results, like people tearing stuff down,
politics are
rioting, all that kind of stuff. People want to talk stuff about it, but it's like, it ain't the quote unquote peaceful things that's getting the results.
Yeah.
When you start tearing shit down, that's what gets their attention.
Peace has never gotten results.
Right. And then it's like we're fighting a violent system, and to be like, stay peaceful, blah blah. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's ridiculous.
I don't know the exact quote, but Stokely Carmichael's like, peace doesn't work when you're fighting savages.
Right. Legit.
Like, could you imagine like a dog is running to attack you, and you're like, no,
right,
don't bite me.
Right. Or you just stand still.
Yeah, you just stand still.
I'm not a threat. Just like try to shrink yourself. It's like
free me, dog. Like, it does not work.
Just like this girl tweeted. I don't know what her name is. I don't remember, but she basically did a tweet like, saying, she was saying like it's such a disconnect to be like, to say like you want to like say no justice, no peace. Yeah, she was like, it's such a disconnect to say no justice, no peace, but like you peacefully protest, and you feel like peaceful protest is like the best way to do things. Like justice, no peace literally means no justice, no peace, like no peace. Not we're gonna peacefully protest, like no, we're not, you're not gonna have peace until there's justice.
We're gonna fuck shit up.
Yeah.
But so here's and I don't
like Minneapolis.
Right.
Look.
Got them hands.
Yo, they man, that video of them talking to the mayor, and they're basically like, okay, yes or no question.
Yeah, go home, Jacob.
After they didn't tore some shit up, and they're like, yes or no question. And he ain't say what they wanted to hear. They like, go home.
Go home, Jacob.
Period. It's the people, like the people, the power is with the people.
But so, and I don't want to take up like too much more time, but when we talk about like no justice, no peace and things like that. And so a lot of times people will say we're not our grandparents, right? And I know that's bullshit. But what I figured is the correct term, what they really mean is we're not our parents. The reason why they skip back to our grandparents is because that's the last time they saw something this massive, right? And the history is written by the victors. So white people write the history books and they show us, look at how peaceful your grandparents' generation was. they skip our parents' generation because our parents' generation kind of didn't have to do it on the scat max level.
They basically got to like ride the coattails of what their parents had done.
Right.
You know, so they kind of like got to cruise off of the, you know, the like the advances or whatever. So they didn't have, and now we're like, okay, no, we got to do.
So that's why a lot of people say we're not our grandparents' generation. What they really mean is we're not our parents' generation.
Right.
Our grandparents were lit. They were out here fucking shit up.
Our grandparents were not passive, bro.
Right.
Like they were, and
you know my grandpa.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like they were in these streets, and I mean, and then they're still, even when they're faced with a bunch of, they're faced with a lot of backlash, they're faced with a lot of violence, whatever, they were still showing up in the streets like it wasn't a game. And so that's why I'm like, and so that's part of it, what Courtney said about like, that kind of is more so the parents, but you know, the reference point is the grandparents. But the other piece of that is that people just don't know their history. So people, because like Courtney said, the victors, you know, write the history books. That's what's mostly put out there, is those that, you know, they want to say Martin Luther King, and they want to show like the sit-ins and all that kind of stuff. They're not showing you the by any means necessary, the, you know, the violent, you know, they're not showing that side. They're not amplifying.
They do show it as a contrast. Look, nothing got done when they did it this way.
But they're not amplifying that.
Yeah.
Or they're, you know, downplaying it or whatever. But it's like, our folks is out here. That's why I'll never be like, I'm not my ancestors. Nah, bruh. Like, they some G's. Like, I'm like, it's their blood running in my veins. That's why I'm about this life, you know. But a lot of it's like, folks, you know, we don't know our history. And I mean, I understand it because it's not like I always knew or whatever. This is from deliberate work and research and studying and doing a fellowship that basically made me feel like I came undone. Like, I was just like, because it was so much stuff I hadn't learned. I literally like broke down crying because I was like, I didn't know this. I broke down crying, went to my grandma and was like, Grandma, like, for real, like all this stuff. And, you know, she kind of gave me more context, but I was just like, it broke my heart. Like, you know, so a lot of folks don't know that history of like them being out in these streets and like for real being about their life. Like, they just don't know. There's
a lot of things missing there, right? There's like, obviously the victors write the history books. So what they teach us in school is the peaceful part. Also the people who through it so trauma, they don't want to talk about it.
That part.
That's the second part. So it's not like my my grandparents. Asia said because people who are peaceful were still very much hated. Like as we see today.
Right. Like the prime example that we always like to use, like MLK. they still kill MLK. You know, they still.
I was going to touch on that in a second, but like, and I don't know about you, but like my grandparents did not willingly give up this information of what they went through. That's not something they just wanted to talk about.
Right.
And sit down. Let me tell you about the time I was abused and all. Right. That's not something.
Let me tell you about this trauma, baby girl.
Right. So it's kind of like there's that disconnect. There's the white people ain't gonna teach us.
Right.
They don't.
So where do we get it from?
So it's weird because we do get our oral history, but they tell us about things from before them. They don't talk about their lived experience.
Talk about their parents.
Right. It's talk about their parents, right? And so maybe my mom will tell me what grandma went through, but my grandma's not gonna tell me. So there's that piece. Then there's kind of like in MLK, in a situation with MLK, I was watching a video and this guy, I don't know his name, he was on Trevor Noah, and he basically the way white people write the story is MLK died, we got our rights, cool, we won civil rights movement. But what really happened was when they killed MLK, they killed the revolution, right? He was ascending, the revolution was ascending, like we were getting rights and we were moving forward. He was fighting for poor people's rights and they killed him.
And they're like, nah, we're going to have to shut that down, bro.
They killed him and said, okay, black people, you won. He's dead. Here's some little rights. Shut the fuck up, right?
Yeah,
they killed the revolution. Right. They killed the revolution. And so the people who came after that, once they start writing these history books, and you guys are fine. Look, you got your civil rights, right? So then we kind of,
and it was just enough to be comfortable because that in between, that's when cue that in between generation that you're talking about,
right?
They got
black women became the most educated group in America,
just enough to be comfortable to where it's like, okay, well look at this person, and then that's when you have like the tokenism and this person made it,
Oprahs and the Obamas, you start getting the NBA integrates, and you start getting all, you know what I mean, sports integrates, and now you see black faces.
Yeah, but look at this person. They start using these very individual examples to like represent the whole, and folks like, oh, well, we did this and we did that. And we're like, but we still have.
And it wasn't, coincidental that at the time that they killed MLK that we started integrating all these other things, right?
Right.
So just living it, I'm sure it seemed like it was getting better. But when you take a step back and look at the data, nothing has changed, right?
Right.
And so the guy was basically saying, like, nothing changed, but for some reason, everybody thinks it's better. That's how they won.
Yeah.
They killed the revolution. So now that
and when you kill, that's the spirit, y'all.
Right.
Like, that's the spirit of the people that, like, the revolution, that's like the fire, and you put that out, and now it's like, you know, you have these, like, folks trying to, like, you know, rebuild it, you know, add stuff to kind of build it back up, but it takes a lot, because it took a lot to get to that point.
Yeah, well, they tell, like, MLK died, and then they kind of ended there. They don't tell about the rioting that occurred after he died.
Right,
that actually brought
folks turned up after he died. It wasn't like folks just like, okay, cool. Folks were like, oh, hell no. Like,
right. And we like to skip, and pretend. And
selective memory.
Short, selective memories. And so that's basically how we got to this point where all of a sudden white people are like, huh, for real, y'all? Yes, nigga. Like, what the fuck? So, anyways, I don't want to take too much time. I'm just saying that's kind of...
Yeah.
And to Asia's point, the FBI does not put a peaceful person at the top of their most wanted list. There's nothing peaceful about MLK.
Right.
They hated his guts. He was a very violent agitator in their eyes.
Right. Because it's like, if you ain't passive, then you're a threat.
Right. Peaceful people don't get arrested 20-something times.
But people conflate peace for passivity.
Right.
MLK wasn't passive. Like, even if you're and even peaceful ain't the same as nonviolent. Like, so people kind of, like, conflate all those things. You might, like, okay, it's very selective, basically. I won't get into all that because I don't want to go into this whole long spiel, but it's just something that, like, folks, we have to, like, learn more about, because it's a lot of our history that we don't know, we're not taught, and we have to, like, find, you know, those people who are actually willing to share that information with us so that we can learn more. You know, like, I saw recently, Angela Davis did like a kind of like a post or a video or whatever, where she was just kind of, like, giving her insight and stuff like that. We have people out there who can give us that information, and we just have to reach out to them and, you know, honor them and all that kind of stuff, because there's so much that we don't know. And when I did that fellowship and I was on, like, it blew my mind, because there's just so much stuff I didn't know, like, even about, like, the riots after MLK and stuff. Like, that's when I learned that. Mm-hmm. And at that point I was in my 20s, you know what I'm saying? So it's like I went through all this time not knowing that, and a lot of folks still don't know.
And you think about, last point, I'm gonna shut up. You think about, like, the world that we live in now. We have social media, we have 24-hour news cycles. Think about how easy it was to keep information from people back then.
Right.
So there were probably a lot of Black people who didn't know things simply because of the way information was spread at that time. So it's easier to keep things separated. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
that's why we're having this resurgence now, because of how easy it is to disseminate information now. That is, like, the prime thing that's happening now. Stuff just spread, and it's still stuff that people don't know. There's still, like, these are just the things that we become privy to. There's still instances that happen that we still don't know about. Mm-hmm. But information is so widespread, but back then it was a lot less so. Mm-hmm. So just imagine, you know?
Yeah, people, just something that not even related to this, but how people forgot there was a pandemic during Woodstock. And I'm asking, like, how the hell did y'all forget that?
Yeah, legit.
It's just like, I don't know. It's like, this is something we'll never forget. Right. I feel like. And for Woodstock, oh my God. I'm sorry. One more thing. So, John Oliver, I don't know if anybody watches John Oliver. He's hilarious. He was talking about the summer of 1967 or 68 and how Black people were being brutalized in the street and how horrible it was for us, right? When did MLK die? Was it 67, 68?
I think 68.
68. It was horrible, right? Horrible. Blood in the street. We're getting attacked by dogs, water hoses, right? Terrible for us. And when you look up that year in the history books, Google it, there's just that year. It's described as the summer of love. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So
what's up?
Just think about, like, the disconnect, 68. Just think about the disconnect.
The disconnect and the manipulation of the history. You know?
Manipulation of the history and the media. But to think about white people, you ask a white person who's the same age as a Black person who lived in those same years, what was your life like during baby, it was the summer of
free love,
free love,
and hippie,
and it's so weird because we see those images, and for me, I've never made the connection that was the same fucking year.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was at the same time.
In the same country, in the same year that these people, because when I think of the 60s, I do think of civil rights, and I do think of like love and peace and free, but I never put it together.
I actually associate that with the 70s. I didn't realize it was the 60s, because 70s is what I think of, like hippie, free love, and kind of like roller skating and shit. I don't know, that's what's in my mind, but because the 60s, I think civil rights. So I never but that's that juxtapositioning that's happening. Like I was talking about earlier, living two different realities. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, how are you gonna be my ally? Like, bruh, your parents, a different reality. Like, look at what my grandmother and your girl, like, bruh, different realities, generation and generation of different realities. So
and he was just thinking, like, he just said something along the lines like, I shudder to think what they're going to call the summer of 20. But white people are going to call it in 20 years from now, right? What are they going to remember this summer as compared to what black people remember this summer as? Right.
I mean, but part of it too is because since we have COVID, they
were in a pandemic.
Yeah, but we don't have a comparable thing because they didn't shut everything down. Like we didn't have a comparable thing. Yeah. Maybe if they still had like Coachella and all kind of stuff, they would just remember that. But okay, gotta wrap up. Because it's been. I digress. I know this is very long, and we're losing light. And I don't. Yeah, it's just time to end it. Honestly, I mean, I got to get this to. Sharmane, and I know it's long as hell, and I just apologize in advance.
Black Lives Matter.
So yeah,
that's all I got to say.
All Black Lives Matter.
All Black Lives Matter.
All Black Lives Matter.
Every last one of them Black lives.
Like, I'm gonna need, like, I want for my Black trans sisters to stop being fucking slaughtered.
Here.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's so ridiculous. I want for Black women's names to be uplifted with the same gusto as Black men. But yeah, so that's why, all Black Lives Matter. All of them. Every last one of them. And those main ones that are being minimized are the ones that's showing up, just like we talked about, showing up for dudes who want to show up for us. That's the same thing, that's the same thing Black queer folks are doing and Black trans women are doing and all that. And we got to protect each other. Like, we are literally all we got. So, all right, y'all. So that's it for this episode. Who knows how long this is going to be? I'm scared to even look at the time. We shall see.
They just said it's going to be called the summer we couldn't go to Whole Foods without a mask.
I think my sister's right. The summer we couldn't go to Whole Foods without a mask. Yeah, it's going to be like the summer of the mask protest. That's probably what it'll be for them, because they were out in these streets protesting about, we want to go to the gym, exercising in front of the damn gym in the street, not wearing a mask because they can't go in the gym. But okay, we're supposed to be done for real though. All right, y'all. So thank you for tuning in. I'm back or whatever for another season.
Yeah.
Thank you. Voices. Thank you, Courtney, for joining me. Something that will happen is moving forward. Well, definitely at least for this season, and I have to, check in with her, see how she feels. But for about every other episode, Courtney will be joining me. So I'll kind of be alternating, and then I'll also be doing some solo stuff. So yeah, because that's what the people listen to. They listen to us and they listen to me. So I'm like, okay, the stats, that's what the stats say. All right, y'all. So thank you for tuning in. That's it. That's all I got. And we're going to go ahead and end this thing. Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Black Radical Queer is a ManeHustle Media podcast hosted by Jhavia and Nicole. BRQ is produced and edited by Sharmane Fury, and the show's theme music was created by The Brothers Records. You can connect with us on Twitter or Instagram at Black Rad Queer. That's BLK RAD QWR. You can also connect with us on Facebook through the Black Radical Queer Podcast Facebook fan page or the BRQ discussion group. You can get Black Rad Queer merch on teespring.com/Black Rad Queer, BLK RAD QWR. And you can leave a voicemail, call in, ask a question, those types of things on the BRQ Google Voice line and that number is 937-601-8647.
ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.